Hello everyone, it's me, Warwick Weston White again, your annoyingly altruistic sanctimonious git of a communist friend here. Okay, opening statement. The truths we cling to depend greatly on our point of view. This is a Star Wars saying, funny enough, from Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. It was said by Obi-Wan Kenobi to Luke Skywalker, or the ghost of Obi-Wan, should I say, in the Dagobah system. And you might think, why is he opening up with this? It's actually to do with statistics. A lot of people are very much easily fooled by statistics because they don't really understand that statistics can be calculated based on different points of view or criteria. So, for example, whenever statistics are published, the criteria in which they were based, or should I say the way they were calculated, is never published along with the statistics. When when the criteria of statistics aren't published along with them, then the statistics are absolutely meaningless. They mean absolutely nothing. I'm going to give you a little example. You probably heard me talking about unemployment and immigration, that kind of stuff. A lot of a lot of people are a bit on the prejudice side that like to blame brown people for losing our jobs. What people don't realise is that it's impossible to increase the population of a country without also increasing consumer demand. So if you double the population of a country with foreigners, you would actually double the amount of jobs, because that's the nature of the way things work. The real reason for unemployment is actually to do with information technology. So that's really the real reason for unemployment. It's actually got nothing to do with immigration. But anyway, say for example, if you look at these kind of what you could call pseudo statistics about how you double the population of a country and you double the amount of jobs, depending on how you calculate the numbers or the point of view, you could calculate it in such a way as to say that when you double immigration, you double employment. But you could also say when you double immigration, you double unemployment, and they would both be true depending on how you calculate the statistics. Or a less biased way of calculating the statistics would be, for example, the work-to-job ratio. If you double the amount of immigrants in the country, the work-to-job ratio actually remains the same as before the immigration happened. I'll give you another example. Actually, probably some of you people might have heard in politics when they did some statistics on the success of drone bombings, and they had two lots of statistics which were completely opposite. Someone said, oh, yeah, it's like a 90% success rate, and someone said, no, it's a 99 failure rate. So you think, well, who's lying? Someone must be lying. But the truth is, both of them were actually telling the truth, depending on how you calculate them. But take an example for some numbers. We'll just take random numbers. So we'll go, let's say, this is made up. So let's say, for example, there are 10 drone strikes, and for every drone strike that happened, 100 people died, okay? And out of that 100 people that died, one was a terrorist, okay? So let's say, for example, 10 bombings happened, 100 people died. Out of each 100 batch of people died, one was a terrorist. Now, from that point of view, if you calculate it so that how many terrorists died per drone bombing, all of a sudden you've got a 100% success rate. But if you calculate it this way, how many civilians died in relation to how many terrorists died, all of a sudden you've got a 99% failure rate. Do you see where I'm coming from? So the truths we cling to depend greatly on our point of view, or the way we calculate things. So this is sometimes known as the criteria of the statistics. So always remember, almost every time the government releases statistics, always look at what they don't do. Remember talking about the mind and negatives? Look for the negative. What don't they tell you? What they don't tell you is how the statistics were calculated, which is why you should always ignore statistics. Load of rubbish. You might think, well, why am I opening this speech with statistics? The reason why I'm doing it is because I'm a bit of a pro-European person. I think Europe is a really, really good thing. And there's lots of anti-European propaganda in England, and it's backed up with statistics. And the statistics very often are a load of rubbish. So sometimes when you get statistics, you need to think, is there any way of logically working things out without actually using the statistics? And what I'm going to explain to you is that there is actually, a lot of people argue and say that, oh, the standard of living in England is like really, really good in Europe, and we're great in this country, and Europe is really, really bad. Obviously, this kind of propaganda that the English government spread. Now, believe it or not, there's a way to tell the standard of living in England in contrast to other Western European countries, and it's actually a way to do it without statistics, and it's simple logic. You can tell, think about it, I'll give you time to think about it, see if you can figure it out. It's actually quite simple. You can tell by the lack of immigration. So for example, if you notice that if you compare how many English people go to live in Spain, compare that to how many Spanish people come to live in England. Lack of Spanish immigration to this country means that we must have a lower standard of living than Spain. Because if our standard of living were higher, the Spaniards would be coming over here and we wouldn't be going over there. So by this logic, by the logic of lack of immigration, you can safely say that England has the lowest standard of living in all of Western Europe. Because if you think about every single Western European country, how many people of those, compare how many people from Germany, from Holland, from Belgium come to live in England, compared to how many of us go to live over there. And it's the same to all countries. I mean, even countries that aren't in the European Union, like Norway, so you have to understand the lack. We have an amazing lack of people that come over to live in this country. We've got the odd Greek and the odd Italian, but there's still more English going to Italy and Greece than they are coming over here. So we have the worst standard of living. And the reason why I'm saying this is because obviously Brexit's coming. A lot of people are anti-Brexit at the moment. I don't think we're going to have another referendum. But when I watched to be honest, I was a Remain. I voted to Remain. I kind of voted for the sake of voting because I knew we weren't going to leave anyway. And explain why we shouldn't really be leaving. Basically, when we're in Europe, they've got a little European setup where basically all our products and services are sold equally, and all of the internal trade in Europe is tariffless. Now, outside of Europe, we will have a little bit of a problem. And the problem we'll have if we actually leave Europe without a deal is that to survive under WTO rules, countries are like, if you think of a country as like a company has to buy and sell to survive. Only on an international level, it's not called buying and selling, we call it importing and exporting. So goods leave the country, go to another country, that country has to pay us for the goods, money comes into our country. When we import things into the country, goods come in, we have to pay for them, money goes out of the country. You see, so now what happens there is, since the Thatcher era, going back to, I'm showing my age here, going back to the very late 70s, very early 80s, Thatcher did something very, very strange. This is, and I remember the opposition party at the time was a guy named Neil Kinnock, who ran about 3 times and lost each time. Now, Neil Kinnock said, and I agree with him on this, he said, you can't run a country purely on the service industry. That's ludicrous. That's never going to happen. That's just insane. She was like, whatever Margaret Thatcher is smoking, let me have some, because she must be out of her head to think that. And the thing is, we went down this path ever since the 80s. England has invested all of its imperial confidence in the service industry. Now, the reason why, and this policy for the last 40 years has not worked. By upholding this service industry thing, the country has progressively got poorer and poorer and poorer. And this is because if you're not manufacturing anything, it means you're importing a lot. And if you import a lot, it means money leaves the country. And a lot of the foreigners, the immigrants in England, work in the service industry. So foreigners have a tendency to send money home, which also kind of exacerbates the problem of making the country slowly poorer and poorer and poorer. The GDP, I'm not sure it's GDP, so the sterling has been upheld. A lot of people don't know this, but sterling is actually upheld by the United States indirectly through currency manipulation. So basically, England is a bit like an American vassal state, or which kind of puts a spanner in the European works to stop Europe from evolving or slow its evolution down as much as possible. And England actually gets paid by the United States indirectly for doing that. So we do lots of illegal things under the European Union. We get fined, and the United States indirectly pays our fines, which is kind of the nature of the way things are happening at the moment. Obviously, it's a bit more complex than that, but that's kind of basically what's actually going on. And the thing is, at the moment, this kind of post, I normally don't make political posts very often, because I like, as you know, I'm a bit of a philosopher, a bit of a poet, so I normally don't go directly into politics. But the thing is, I'm also saying this because there's certain things which are illegal under the European Union, like council tax, for example. Under European monetary law, all taxes have to be only relative to what people will earn. Whereas the council tax isn't only relative to what people earn, it's actually relative to where they live as well, which is why it's illegal. You've got things like the TV licence. They pay insane fines to the European government for this. And England's got this little twisted point of view, and it tries to put forward an anti-European view on things. And in a nutshell, the real reason for England's woes is a lot of people blame the European Union for things, and it's actually got nothing to do with the European Union at all. The real reason for England's woes is that England is a pathetic little island nation that still thinks it's an empire, and it's trying to hold on to imperial values in a socialist world, and Europe is quite a socialist setup. And the world, even outside Europe, is slowly turning more and more socialist all the time, and this is the real problem with England. And there's other like propaganda as well. They talk about the Commonwealth links, for example. Now, the term Commonwealth means that with Commonwealth countries, it basically means the wealth of their country is common to our wealth. Now, you see, all Commonwealth countries now are, with very small exceptions, the wealth they're Commonwealth in title, but they're not Commonwealth in function. Now, what I'm saying is that, say for example, like I think Trinidad and I think Jamaica still produce a few things for us. They produce things for us, they export them, we invest in them, we get money from the stuff that they export on our behalf, for example. But there's really tiny ones. I mean, the last two. So basically, if you look at countries like Australia, they haven't produced anything for over 100 years, nor has Australia, nor has New Zealand. Pretty much all of the Commonwealth countries don't produce for us anymore. They're just Commonwealth in title. They're not Commonwealth in function. And the two most significant Commonwealth countries, which are Commonwealth in function, which we had was it Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India. Now, these three countries, we lost these countries to Russia. They trade with Russia now. They're not common to our wealth anymore. With all of our Commonwealth links, we've got some silly little tiny stupid ones that are maybe bringing a couple of £1 million a year to the whole country. Do you know what I mean? Nothing even close to enough to supporting our economy. Because we've invested in this service industry, this insane service industry for the last 40 years, and for 40 years, this kind of model that England's invested in has failed. And it's not just failed, it's constantly failed. You know, Neil Kinnock back in the 70s was very right when he said, what the hell is Margaret Thatcher smoking to think you can actually run an entire country on a service industry? What is she smoking, man? And the thing is, it's time for us to realise, time for the English people to realise, after 40 years, because it's nearly 40 years now since Thatcher got elected, after 40 years, it's finally time for us to admit to ourselves that this service industry imperial confidence model does not work. It does not work, and it hasn't worked for 40 years. Neil Kinnock was right then, and he was right, being right for the whole 40 years, and he's still right to this day. And we're still holding on to this insane model. So you might think, what's Warwick's ulterior motive for making this video? I'll tell you what my ulterior motive is. My ulterior motive is that this coming election, when the next election goes on, we should vote for Corbyn. Corbyn wants to bring back manufacturing. And the thing is, this is what I see happening in the here and now. Corbyn and May is like a repeat of history of Thatcher and Kinnock. A lot of you old younger guys probably might be too young to remember Thatcher and Kinnock. But basically, we're in a situation now where we can right the mistake that we made 40 years ago. 40 years ago, we listened to Thatcher, we ignored Kinnock, and look where it's got us. We're such a pathetic little island nation now, but we couldn't leave Europe even if we wanted to. Now, the thing is, under Corbyn isn't going to leave the European Union. He's keeping quiet about whether he is or whether he isn't. But the reason why he's keeping quiet about the fact that he's not going to leave is because he's worried he's going to lose votes. But the truth of the matter is, we can leave Europe, but not now. Because what happens is, to survive under the WTO, we need to import and export things. We need manufacturing. Because basically, if we leave Europe now with no manufacturing, we've got nothing to sell. We've got no functional Commonwealth links. We're then to import so much, got nothing to export. The country will just go bankrupt unless we get economically annexed by the United States, that's not going to be good. But the point is, you know, if people vote for Corbyn and we bring back manufacturing, eventually, if we bring back manufacturing on a grand scale, if we bring it back on like a a Manhattan-sized project, maybe 5 to 10 years down the road, we would have built up our manufacturing base to such a degree that we'll be in a position where we can leave Europe. But for here and now, we're stuck in Europe. So don't try and go off of, if you're like a leaver, don't go off of the idea of voting for Corbyn because you're a leaver, because we're not going to leave anyway. That's simply not going to happen. That's economic suicide for England if we did that, because we have no manufacturing. We've got nothing to sell in the WTO. We've got nothing to sell anyone. We've got no exports to sell. Well, not literally none, but nowhere near enough to support our economy. So what I would say is, whether you're a leaver, whether you're a Remainer, look at the mistake that we made 40 years ago. This is a time to reflect on the stupid thing we did with Thatcher and Kinnock in going with Thatcher and this insane model of no manufacturers and what they're smoking. But, come on, you guys, you got to realise after 40 years of failure of this no manufacturing model, that 40 years is a long time for something to constantly fail, to constantly make the country poorer and poorer and poorer. I mean, come on, you guys, you've got to realise this now. Bring back manufacturing. So what I'd like to see, when the next vote comes around, vote for Corbyn. This is a good guy. I think he's kind of got some genuine ideas. I think he generally cares about the people. And but also, if you do this and manufacturing comes back, all you people got to also remember that you really got to pull your fingers out and work hard for king and country. Because, if you're complacent, if you're lazy, then the products we produce won't be competitive with other European products, and they won't get exported much, and they won't bring anything into the country. So try not to be complacent. You have to work hard to make the English products of a high quality. So work hard, keep the prices high, keep the quality high, the prices low. And this is the way we need to go forward. But anyway, that's kind of the end of my post for the time being. I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you forgive me for making a political post, because I normally don't make political posts very often. But try and remember that little philosophy that I said about statistics, because they will always blind. One of the biggest tricks, they always blind you with statistics and don't tell you how the statistics are calculated. And whenever they give you statistics and they don't tell you how it's calculated, just ignore them. They're just meaningless numbers. If the criteria isn't published along those statistics, they mean nothing. Seriously, I mean absolutely bugger all. So anyway, I'll say goodbye for the time being. When the vote comes up, vote Corbyn. The guy knows what he's doing. You take care and God bless.